I Love Lucy. Do you? I Love Lucy was my favorite sitcom when I was a kid. Every time she was on, I watched it. I don't know how many times reruns didn't make any difference. I watched the Lucy show that came afterwards. I am currently making my way through the entire series. And today, I think it's so great because today I'm going to talk a little more about Lucy and her life because Being the Ricardos was one of my absolute favorite movies of 2021. Written and directed by Aaron Sorkin, one of my favorite writers in the world. I mean, his comic timing, Aaron Sorkin's comic timing, and Lucille Ball's comic timing together. I mean, a perfect combo or what? I watched the film, and within the first 15 minutes, I knew that I needed to watch it again. And I watched the whole thing, and as soon as the credits finished, I started it again and watched it all the way through. Every time I watch the movie, I watch it twice because all of the elements of craft that eluded me when I was first starting out on this writing journey, the ones that are still giving me really a hard time, they're all there, crystal clear and beautiful. And so today I'm going to unpack them a little bit. Now, if you've never seen the movie before, there are a few spoilers, but let me tell you this. I was totally spoiled before I watched the movie because I had listened to TMC's podcast, The Plot Thickens. The third season is all about Lucy. Ben Mankiewicz hosts it, and he goes through 10 episodes that reveal absolutely everything about how Lucy went from this small town girl to this cultural icon. There are interviews with all the people that she knew. There are segments of her being interviewed. It is just fabulous. It's 10 episodes, and there are 4 bonus episodes, one with Aaron Sorkin, a must listen to. So I knew everything. And when I went into the movie, before I sat down to watch it, I thought, well, yes, I really want to watch it because Nicole Kidman, one of my favorites, and Javier Bardem, of course, and Aaron Sorkin, writing, directing. So yeah, I was excited. And yet I thought, I've listened to this entire podcast. I know everything. So what's going to surprise me? And I'll tell you what surprised me. What surprised me was how dramatic the story was. How Aaron Sorkin took this mega life and condensed it into this really high stakes, dramatic moment that displayed everything about Lucy's life in a nutshell. I was not disappointed in the least, even though I knew the whole story. And I think that if you do listen to The Plot Thickens, Lucy, before, I think you'll actually appreciate the spoilers I'm about to reveal. So anyways, let's just start out. First of all, the first element of craft that I still am battling with is tension and stakes. I mean, you want your character to be in the midst of high stakes tension all the time. And every time something gets resolved, you want to ramp it up again. It's a difficult thing to master. I'm still trying to get my head around it. There are 3 major events in Lucy's life that really challenged her. The first one is that in the second season of I Love Lucy, she became pregnant. And nobody had ever been pregnant on TV. And the networks were like, no, there's no way we can do this. And so she knew it could end the career, but they were determined not to let it derail the show. And they were determined to let her be pregnant on the air because she wanted to keep working. So they forged ahead. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that, Desi cheated on her. Not just once, but multiple times. And she knew about it. And it was a running thing in their marriage. And at one point in time, his affair becomes big time public knowledge because it is on the cover of Confidential magazine. Does Desi really love Lucy? Yeah. And the third huge obstacle that Lucy had to deal with was the Red Scare. Walter Winchell announced one Sunday night that the most popular female comedian on television was a communist. Didn't say her name, but everybody knew they were talking about Lucy. So all of those things could have ended her career. All of those things came at very separate times. And Aaron Sorkin brilliantly upped the stakes and tension for the drama of the story by putting them all in 1 week. It was phenomenal. I mean, why not? Make it tighter. Make it a shorter frame. And one of the things that Aaron Sorkin said in his bonus episode was that when you're telling a story, the most important thing is to be true. True to the characters, true to the moment. The accuracy is secondary. Accuracy is for journalism. And that was a big eye-opener for me. And he showed how well it worked by putting all 3 things happening at the same time. It just increased the tension. Bam, bam, bam. So 3 things happen in this 1 week. And what does he lead with? The Red Scare. The worst possible thing. It's the worst possible thing because not only could it derail the careers of Lucy and Desi, it could end the show and ruin the careers of everybody involved in the show, because blacklisting was a thing back then. So Sorkin starts out with the big one because you know that this is the worst. Then when he twists the other things, it just ramps up the tension of what could actually demolish everybody's life. And that was really amazing. And how bold. The second big element of story that often trips up writers, and certainly has tripped up me many, many times, is the economy of backstory, right? You don't want any big info dumps. And there were none. Absolutely none. Sorkin handles backstory with tiny flashbacks. So the structure of the film is 1 week, 5 days. It's from Sunday night when they hear Winchell's announcement about Lucy being a communist. Monday morning's table read until Friday's filming in front of a live audience. That's the week. And during that time, he delivers little flashbacks that give us just exactly enough of the information we need to know about Lucy's past to make this front burner storyline have more tension and increase the stakes. So on Monday, there's a flashback about how Lucy and Desi meet. And within that little romantic exchange, Lucy, in probably no more than 3, maybe 4 lines at the most, she reveals to Desi everything that happened in her career from the time she left Jamestown until she got to Hollywood.
I got kicked out of acting school for not being good enough.
Get out of here.
I will not. I got some modeling work. I was hired and fired as a Ziegfeld girl, but hired as a Golden Girl. And that's what took me out here.
That's all. A lot more happened, but it was just so tiny and so succinct. And it was enough to show that, geez Louise, she's really had it rough, but she's still in there fighting. And that gave a lot about character, right? In Tuesday's flashback, we learn how deliriously happy they are and also how unhappy they are. We find out that there is always a level of friction in their relationship, which underscores the internal conflict within their marriage, which makes the cover of the Confidential magazine about Desi's affair drop like a big bomb for Lucy. The third element of craft, character, her identity. In Being the Ricardos, we have no doubt who Lucy is right from the beginning. From the moment the movie opens and Desi comes home and Lucy jumps on him like, "Where have you been and you couldn't call me?"
Lucy, I'm home.
Where the hell have you been, you Cuban dimwit?
Oye, you see that's it.
Philandering bongo player.
I was playing cards with. Hey, I was playing cards with. Coño,
You
oh
tell
damn
me
it.
when it starts to hurt.
Right there, we know exactly how important this relationship is to her. Her marriage is really important, and she's a fighter, and she's going to fight, and they do. And that gives the dynamic relationship of their marriage. And we see on Monday, because of this big bomb from Walter Winchell, we see right away how important the job is for her and how tense she is. And we see and understand that the tension, although she says she's fine, what she does in those moments is put all her energy into the work, and she becomes nitpicky and questioning, and she's always pushing everybody to make it better. That's the way she copes. So that's another dimension of her personality that we get right away, right from the beginning, that helps us know that this woman isn't going anywhere. And no matter what comes at her, she is going to deal with it, no matter how hard it is. We also see how much she cares about all the people that she works with, and she admires them. She knows they're really good, and because she's fighting for what she cares about, they're willing to go the extra mile too. So their support of her, and even their friction with her, also reveals the strength of her as a person and the talent that she has. The other way we get to know her is when they are in the table readings, and even when she's in the writer's room. You know, they're talking about a moment in the script, or they're talking about a moment in another script. And then we see her go into her mind's eye, and she envisions exactly how it could be played out. And so we see that this is a creative genius at work. She may not be able to come up with funny right away. She doesn't do jokes. She's not that kind of person, but she can take a situation and then she can flip it around and see how she can make it physically funny. And so we know who she is. She is a creative person who can spin gold out of nothing. Character as identity, it's all there and so crystal clear. So along with character, there's character point of view. You're inside their head. You know what they're thinking. Okay, we don't know exactly what Lucy is thinking in this film, but we know what she's feeling, thanks to the brilliant performance of Nicole Kidman. We know when she leaves one scene, we know where she is emotionally, we know what she's carrying on, and we have a pretty good idea of exactly what she's going to go for because of what happened in the other scene. Is she going to apologize? Does she need to really address an issue? Whatever that is, we have a sense of what that is. And then when she gets into the scene with either Vivian or William Crawley or Desi or the producer, what happens in that interchange forces her to reevaluate her point of view. It kind of pulls a rug right out from under it. Each time she is forced to look at what she was feeling and figure out if that was legitimate or not. And then we see how that re-examination either forces her to double down on what she wanted to begin with, or it shows us that she has changed her point of view and her intention has also changed. And that leads her into the next scene in a very different way. The result is that each scene propels the story forward and increases the tension and the stakes. The last thing I want to share with you is the use of objects. As an actor, you have to be able to have a relationship with a prop. In rehearsal, you kind of have fake things, and then you get the pretend thing, and then you get the real thing, so that you get used to using it, and it becomes second nature, just like you're going through life. I'm picking this up, I'm putting this down, I'm taking a drink, I'm setting it down, whatever it is, so that it's just natural. And on a set, you don't want to have anything more or less than you need. When you're writing, what an author focuses on what the narrator focuses on, what the protagonist focuses on, when they spend a lot of time with a particular object, then the reader understands that it's important. This isn't an Aaron Sorkin thing. This is actually a David Mamet thing. Is 3 uses of a knife. If you're going to use an object, this pen, if I'm going to use this object, I can write with it. The next time I use it, I might comb my hair with it. The last time I use it, I might stab you in the eye with it. Every time I use it, there should be another purpose. There should be a different way for me to view it. And in that viewing of it, it should reveal something else about my character or the situation. Objects are really, really important. And Sorkin does this extraordinary thing with the simplest moment that you almost miss it. On Monday, Lucy and Desi talk to the producers and the network guys about the whole Red Scare thing, and they go away. And then they have this moment alone in the office, and Desi is like, we've been through worse things. And she's like, really? And he says no. And it's funny and it's cute, and they end up kissing. And then Lucy takes his hanky out of his pocket and she wipes the lipstick off his mouth, and she folds it and puts it back in his pocket because they're going to work. And he says, you never did that before. And she said, yeah, I know, but I've seen it in all these movies and I always wanted to try it. And it's just a really cute and a tender little moment, and it's really sweet, and you don't think anything of it, right? It's just like, it's a nice, sweet moment. Thursday, there is more tension than ever. The dinner scene is just not working in the script, where Ethel and Fred are fighting, and Lucy's having a hard time with the director dealing with that. They still don't know if the show is actually going to tape on Friday, and Lucy is in the laundry room. And she's doing the laundry, she's sorting the laundry, and Desi comes in and he says, you know, what are you doing? She goes, well, you know, and she likes to deal with everyday things to help her cope. And she's going through the laundry and she's emptying out pockets, and she finds the hanky and she looks at it, and her whole mood changes. And we think, or I thought, especially at the beginning, well, that's her hanky, right? Like, what's the big deal? Is she sad because there's tension in the relationship right now? Or, you know, I wasn't quite sure what was going on. And then there's this sadness. And then she leaves the laundry room and she goes out into their backyard in the rain. And she just stands there and she looks at the house, and something seriously has changed. And the very next moment, and this is late at night, right? The very next scene, she is in the studio. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. She has called William Farley and Vivian Vance to the studio to work on that dinner scene. And it's really intense, and she wants them to do it. And they're like, you know, it'll be fine, we'll figure it out. And she goes, no, we need to do this right now. And Vivian says, did something happen? And that's when I realized that, oh, I don't think that's the hanky, her hanky. That's somebody else's hanky. Huge twisting of tension and stakes, right? These two things coming bam together. Her show is on the brink of disaster. She feels that if they don't get this dinner scene right, the show will be over just as much as if the show was canceled because of this whole thing about communism. It's an enormous emotional turning point. And then on Friday, 3 uses of the knife. After the show is saved, because Desi gets J. Edgar Hoover to admit that Lucy was cleared of all charges of communism, and it's a big celebration, and everybody in the audience is ready to watch the show. And there's this moment where Lucy and and Desi go backstage, and they're so happy, and I'm always with you, and I'm always with you. And in this moment of celebration, when they should just be completely relieved that their show is saved and they're going to be able to go on and they're going to save everybody else's jobs, in this jubilant moment, she grabs his face and she asks him directly about the affair. Did you cheat on me? And she pulls out the hanky. And he's like, well, you kissed me and that's your lipstick. And she says, no. And she pulls out another hanky and she says, this is my lipstick. And then they start to bicker a little bit, but then she grabs him and she kisses him and she says, let's go to work. Let's do the show. I mean, how brilliant of an ending is that? The strength of her character, and how when things bother her, once again, she goes to work, because that's the best way she has of salvaging her life. Being the Ricardos. If you've never watched it, you need to. If you've seen it, you need to watch it again. It is one of the best examples of how to craft an emotionally dramatic story.